Chapter 10. Torres at Dawn. He came in at first light with 3 frigates and no warning. Kess felt the docking clamps engage through the infrastructure before the alert sounded. She was in the District 7 Integration Center when Sarah looked up and said, simply, "He's here." Torres had occupied the docking level's main corridor with practiced efficiency. Officers stood at every junction. A command unit held the docking hub, and no one had contacted Valk or Hadrian before deploying. He was not here to talk. Valk met him in the corridor with 12 of her own officers. "Commander Torres, you're on emergency protocol without authorization." "I have high command authorization," Torres said. He was younger than Kess had expected, lean and precise. "Protocol 7 is reinstated. All integrated individuals are to be detained for biological processing. Commander Valk, you are relieved of command." Valk didn't get to finish asking on whose authority. "Admiral Corvin." Torres held out a data crystal without looking at her. His eyes moved across the corridor, cataloging. They found Kess. "Navigator Raventhorn. You will come with my officers." "I won't," Kess said. Torres did not move. "That wasn't a request." "I know," she said. Torres studied her face for the tell his training had taught him to expect. He didn't find it. Just Kess, looking back at him. "You're going to tell me I'm wrong," he said, "that this isn't contamination, that the planet is offering partnership." "Then you know the Dawnforge numbers," Kess said. "I know Torn's version. I also know Torn has integrated and has been, by multiple accounts, notably more persuasive since." He met her eyes. "I read the council session transcript. Councillor Marsh's observation about Torn's changed demeanor was entered into the record. The record also includes your own admission. You cannot distinguish your judgment from the network's influence." He paused. "You handed me the grounds for detention in your own testimony." Torres didn't wait for her to answer. He gestured to his officers. They moved toward the integration centers. "All integration activity is to cease immediately." He didn't send anyone for Kess yet. The dock was his. The corridors were his. She had nowhere to go, and the centers mattered more right now than one more body in a cell. Sarah slipped out before the doors closed and disappeared into the corridor crowd. She hadn't been at a station when the seal came down, and Torres's people were counting bodies at the interfaces, not watching the hallways. The District 7 Center was sealed first. 2 citizens were still mid-contact when Torres's officers reached the interfaces. "They have to come out in sequence," Piria said, stepping between the nearest officer and the disconnect panel. "Let me disengage them." The officer checked the order on his wrist display. "All integration activity ceases immediately." "The interface doesn't know what an order is," Piria said. "It will do exactly what you tell it to do to their nervous systems. Give me time to do this safely." He looked toward the corridor, where Torres' command unit was already moving to the next center. Then he reached past her and cut the first connection. The woman in the interface arched so hard her heels struck the deck. The severing tore through Kess too. The woman's presence vanished from the network. Flat quiet followed. The woman folded sideways. He dropped his wrist display and caught her head before it hit the floor. "Keep her on her side," Piria said. She was already at the second interface, hands moving through a controlled disengagement while the officers watched. "Support the neck. Don't hold her down." The first woman's eyes opened, but did not settle on the room. Her mouth moved. No sound came. "Where?" He left his wrist display on the deck beside his knee and looked at Piria. "Tell her where she is," Piria said. "Keep telling her until she can answer." He obeyed and kept speaking to the woman. Piria went with both citizens when they were taken for evaluation. She wasn't going to leave people mid-crisis with officers who had no training for an interrupted integration. She was also the only one in the room who knew what that actually did to a body. The other centers were sealed soon after. One by one, Kess felt them going dark through the network. Perea came back a while later. Kess felt Perea's relief through the network before Perea said a word. The citizen was breathing on her own, disoriented and frightened, but she could say her name. Perea had stayed for that. She still couldn't say whether everyone pulled out mid-contact would recover. Torres documented the chat messages on the sealed doors, not as evidence of hope, but as evidence of coordinated messaging. He noted the synchronization patterns in the integrated workers' behavior. He noted the atmospheric improvements and flagged them alongside the cognitive changes, presenting both as data points in the same analysis. Every entry was accurate. "Volk," she said quietly. Volk appeared at her shoulder, standing straight despite the bare collar. Her hand kept finding the spot where the rank had been, closing each time on nothing. "He's not going to have a change of heart," Kess said. "No," Volk said. "He'll follow his mandate until someone with more authority gives him another." "How do you know?" Kess asked. "Because I trained him," Volk said. "Years ago. He was the best student I ever had. He does what he's told because he trusts the system that tells him. And the system is not wrong to be concerned about what integration does to people. You said so yourself in the council chamber." Kess looked at the sealed door of the District 7 Center. Someone had already written on the wall in fabricator's chalk, "The air is cleaner. Ask why." Torres had photographed it and moved on to the next sealed door. "Torn got through to brass," Valk said. "One brief message. Their integration center opened earlier despite the blackout. 70 volunteers went through before Torres's crew ever reached the doors. By the time his people got inside, there was nothing left to find. The center director was engineer first class Nadia Solis, and she made contact with the core network before the shutdown. She's integrated. 4 days until Corvin," Kess said. Volk said nothing. When Torres came for Kess and Volk later that morning, he escorted them to a repurposed equipment bay on the docking level. It held 4 cots, a water reclamation unit, and a reinforced door. Thane and Vira were already inside. Perea had gone back to the medical holding area with the interrupted integrations. "You'll be held here until Admiral Corvin arrives," he said. "You won't be harmed. There will be a formal assessment." "And the 212 integrated citizens?" Kess asked. "They remain at their posts under restricted movement," Torres said. "Medical evaluation and cognitive assessment will proceed in shifts. I won't compromise life support simply to make a point." He seemed to believe the 212 were the whole of it. Kess did not correct him. Sarah was still moving freely in District 7, unaccounted for in anything Torres had catalogued. So were the brass volunteers, scattered before his crew ever reached them. He met her eyes steadily. "Navigator Raventhorn, I've read your testimony. I believe you are honest about the uncertainty. I believe Marsh was right about Torn. I believe the Dawn Forge numbers are real. I believe the atmospheric improvements are real. The planet's consciousness is real too." He paused. "I also believe that a species-level decision about human cognitive autonomy should not be made under duress. Not by a population making an irreversible decision at gunpoint. Not when the information comes through people whose judgment the process has already altered." Kess had no answer for that. He had counted the same numbers she had. The risk to 40,000 people was a choice he was making, not a fact he had missed. 4 days is a long time," she said. "It is," Torres agreed. "Use it to think about whether the certainty you feel is yours." He left, and the door closed behind him. Kess sat on the cot, stared at the ceiling, and considered Torres's question. She thought about it honestly, the way the old Torn would have wanted her to. The one who checked his own certainty twice before he trusted it. Was her certainty hers? She didn't know. That was either honest or the first sign she was losing the ability to tell. She lay down and reached for what she could still feel of the network. 4 days was more time than it sounded like if she used it right.
Chapter Guild, Stories for Your Mind.